When your cat stops what they're doing, walks across the room, looks directly at you, and then quietly goes back to their business, that is one of the most intentional social behaviors in the entire animal kingdom. And until recently, scientists believed it was impossible for cats to perform it at all. The fact that your cat is checking on you specifically, not the window, not the sound from outside, not the other person in the room, but you, means they have assigned you a role in their life that most owners spend their entire time with their cat never fully grasping. And the science behind why they do it is not what anyone expected. Most people assume the checking is about food, or boredom, or some vague, low-level territorial instinct that doesn't carry much emotional weight. And honestly, that assumption makes sense, because for a long time, even researchers made it. Cats were studied for decades as fundamentally solitary, self-sufficient animals who tolerated humans rather than genuinely connecting with them. The behavioral science community largely treated cats as creatures driven by survival needs, not social bonds. But here's what most people don't realize. That picture has been almost completely overturned in the last 15 years. The checking behavior, that quiet, deliberate glance your cat gives you from across the room, turns out to be one of the most transparent windows into just how deeply your cat is bonded to you. And most owners have been reading it wrong for years. Their cats have been trying to tell them something the whole time. We'll come back to what that really means near the end of this video. There's one layer to this behavior that most owners wish they had understood from the very beginning of their relationship with their cat. But first, let's start with a discovery that surprised even the researchers. 1. Social referencing. And here's what makes this remarkable before I even explain what that term means. The moment you understand it, you'll never watch your cat glance at you the same way again. Most people assume that looking to another individual to understand whether something is safe or threatening is something humans do. Parents notice it immediately with toddlers. A child hears a loud, unfamiliar sound and looks directly at the parent's face to read whether to cry or stay calm. Researchers also observe it in chimpanzees and other primates. But for decades, the scientific consensus was firm. Cats don't do this. They're too independent, too solitary. Their responses to novelty and potential threat come from their own instincts, not from watching another animal's reaction. A 2015 study from the University of Milan changed that entirely. Researchers placed cats in a room with a fan that had ribbons attached to it, something unfamiliar, slightly startling, genuinely ambiguous in terms of whether it posed any danger. Then they watched what the cats did. And what the cats did was look at their owner's face, not once, repeatedly, back and forth between the strange object and the owner's expression. When owners were instructed to show fear or discomfort, the cats moved away from the fan and sought proximity to their owner. When the owner displayed a relaxed, positive expression, the cats were significantly more likely to approach and explore the object on their own. Think about that for a second. Your cat is not just checking on you. They are using your face as information. They are consulting you. They are treating your emotional response as reliable data about the world around them. In the wild, cats are solitary hunters who survive entirely on their own reads of the environment. Their threat assessment belongs to no one but themselves. The fact that a domesticated cat has rewired that instinct to include another species you in their decision-making process is not a small behavioral shift. It is a profound one. It means your cat has elevated you to the status of trusted reference point, and that is something they give to almost no one else in their entire life. Most owners go their cat's entire life never recognizing this signal for what it is. Every time your cat glances at you when something feels uncertain, a new sound, a visitor at the door, a sudden change in the environment, they are not being nosy. They are asking you a question. And the answer you give with your face and your body language, whether you know you're giving it or not, shapes how safe your cat feels in that moment. To your cat, your calm presence is not just comforting. It is data. You are their most trusted source of information about whether the world is safe right now. And every time you stay steady, without even thinking about it, you are passing a test your cat is running continuously throughout the day. So the next time something startles your cat and they look directly at you first, stay steady, breathe normally. Soften your expression. You're not just reassuring them, you are answering. But here's what most people never find out. The checking is not only about external threats. Some of what your cat is reading is you, specifically you, and this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. 2, your cat is monitoring your internal state, and they're doing it with a level of precision that should genuinely humble any of us who have ever called a cat oblivious. Here's the thing about what cats are actually capable of sensing. They have roughly 200 million odor-sensitive cells in their nasal passages compared to the 5 million humans have. Their hearing range extends to approximately 65,000 Hz, nearly 3 times what we can detect. And their visual sensitivity to micro-movement, the tiny involuntary shifts in posture and muscle tension that occur when a person is stressed, anxious, in pain, or unwell, is extraordinary. What this means practically is that your cat is receiving information about your physiological state that you yourself may not have consciously registered yet. A 2019 study published in the journal Animal Cognition found that cats show distinct behavioral responses to their owners' emotional states, specifically stress and sadness, that are measurably different from their responses to strangers displaying those same emotions. They were not simply reacting to emotional signals in general. They were specifically, selectively attuned to their owner. The bond itself had created a kind of calibrated sensitivity. Your cat has essentially built a baseline model of what you normally seem like, and they notice when you deviate from it. When your cat checks on you and you are going through something difficult, when you are tense, when you are exhausted, when you are grieving something you have not even fully named yet, there is a real and scientifically supported possibility that your cat has already detected it. The checking in those moments is not routine. It is monitoring. It is the feline equivalent of quietly sitting next to someone and saying, "I can tell something is different. I am here." Most owners miss this completely because they are waiting for a dramatic gesture. They expect emotional support from a cat to look the way it looks from a dog: big, obvious, insistent, physical. But cats do not work that way. Their emotional attunement is quiet. The check is brief. The presence afterward is subtle. And because it is subtle, it gets dismissed as coincidence or as the cat simply being nearby for warmth. Your cat has been reading you for years, potentially. The question is whether you have been reading them back. And hey, if this is already making you see your cat's behavior differently, hit subscribe. It is genuinely the best way to help other cat owners understand what their cats have been trying to tell them all along. Stay with me, because the next one reframes something almost every cat owner has spent years misreading as a personality quirk. 3, your cat has made you their most important territory. And that distinction changes everything about how to interpret the checking. Most people understand that cats are territorial. They claim spaces, they mark areas, they monitor boundaries. But here's what most people don't realize. Territory for a cat is not strictly about space. It is about what holds the highest value. Wild felids expend significant energy monitoring the parts of their range that matter most: prey sources, shelter, reliable water. The monitoring is not casual. It is deliberate, sustained, and resource protective. When your cat checks on you throughout the day, they are performing the behavioral equivalent of a territorial survey. They are confirming that their most valued resource, their bond with you, is intact and stable. This goes back thousands of years. Even before cats were fully domesticated, the proto-domestic cats who began associating with human settlements did so selectively. They chose proximity to the humans and environments that offered consistent value. That selective attention shaped into something deeper over generations of coevolution. What began as strategic proximity eventually became genuine attachment. But the monitoring instinct that drives it still carries the weight of something ancient, the drive to keep track of what matters most. Here's what makes this even more fascinating. Cats in multi-cat, multi-person households still tend to concentrate this checking behavior on one primary human. Even when several people are regularly home, individual cats typically develop one primary attachment relationship and the checking clusters around that person. If your cat keeps checking on you specifically and not simply whoever is nearest, that specificity is the entire point. You have not just been accepted, you have been selected. And in the social world of a cat, selection is not a small thing. To your cat, monitoring where you are and how you seem is not a distraction. It is protective. It is what you do when something matters deeply enough to warrant attention. Most owners spend years thinking their cat just happens to be nearby a lot. They do not realize they have been chosen. Here is something worth holding on to as we go further. An owner once reached out to describe her relationship with her gray tabby, a cat she had lived with for 7 years, a cat that her friends and family always described as aloof, distant, independent, to the point of seeming uninterested in human company. He rarely sat on her lap for long. He did not come when called. But she began to notice, especially during the years following her mother's death, that he was always in whatever room she was in, always just present, always checking. She had assumed for years it was food seeking, or that he simply liked warmth. It took her another 2 years to understand what was actually happening. We'll come back to her story at the end, because what she eventually realized is the piece that makes everything else in this video click into place. 4. Your cat experiences what researchers now call secure attachment, and the checking behavior is one of its most consistent, reliable expressions. For most of behavioral science's history, attachment theory was considered applicable to human infants and, to some extent, other primates. The idea that a cat could form an attachment style, secure, anxious, or avoidant in the way a child bonds with a caregiver felt, to most researchers, like an overclaim. Cats were not supposed to need that kind of bond. They were supposed to be self-contained. A 2019 study from Oregon State University tested this directly. Researchers placed cats in an unfamiliar room with their owners for 2 minutes, then the owner left for 2 minutes, then returned. The cats were observed closely for how they responded to both the separation and the reunion. The results were striking. Approximately 65% of the cats displayed what behaviorists classify as secure attachment. When the owner returned, these cats acknowledged the reunion and then relaxed, returning to exploration with the owner present as a reliable, safe base. The remaining cats displayed anxious or disorganized patterns. 65% secure. That is, for the record, a higher rate of secure attachment that has been documented in dogs in equivalent studies. What this means for the checking behavior is crucial and specific. A securely attached cat does not check on you out of anxiety. They do not check on you because they fear you will disappear or because they cannot regulate themselves without constant reassurance. They check on you the way a person who trusts deeply glances across a room at the person they love, not to confirm the person is still there out of fear, but as a natural, low-effort extension of an ongoing connection. The checking is relational maintenance. It is the feline way of keeping the bond active without requiring constant physical contact to do so. In cat language, a glance from across the room carries real relational weight. The physical distance between you does not reduce the connection. In some ways, it demonstrates the depth of it, because a cat who feels truly, securely bonded to you does not need to be touching you to feel close to you. They just need to know where you are. That knowledge is enough. You are their anchor point, and as long as they can locate you, they are grounded. Most owners interpret physical distance as emotional distance. It is not. The checking is the closeness. You just have to know how to see it. Remember earlier when I said there's one layer to this behavior that most owners wish they had understood from the very beginning? This is it. 5. And this is the one that changes everything. The act of choosing to check on you at all is, in the strictest biological terms, an evolutionary anomaly. And understanding why it happens is the clearest window into what you actually mean to your cat. Here's the thing about cats in the wild. They are simultaneously predator and prey. Small, wild felids, the direct ancestral relatives of your domestic cat, face threats from above, from the ground, and from competing animals within their own territory. Survival in that context demands absolute, unbroken environmental awareness. It requires that attention never be wasted on social monitoring of another animal. Every glance toward another individual is a glance away from the perimeter. It is, in the most precise biological sense, a vulnerability, an opening, a risk that natural selection should have relentlessly eliminated from their behavioral repertoire. And yet, your cat looks at you again and again, voluntarily redirecting their attention away from their environment and toward your face. This is not a trivial behavior dressed up in emotional language. This is your cat making a choice at some deep, instinctual level that you are worth the vulnerability. That shifting their gaze to you is not a dangerous distraction from safety. That monitoring you has become part of what safety means to them now. You are not a threat they have learned to tolerate. You are the thing they orient toward when the world feels uncertain. That is a transformation of instinct so significant that researchers studying feline-human relationships describe it as one of the defining markers of genuine interspecies bonding. Think about what that actually is. It is trust made physical and behavioral. It is an ancient survival instinct, one that took millions of years to sharpen, gently bent around a bond that evolution never designed for, but that cats discovered anyway, through thousands of years of choosing to be near us. This is where the story of the Grey Tabby comes back. 2 years after that owner started paying real attention to the checking behavior, she realized something that stopped her entirely. The checking had intensified during the months after her mother died, not because the cat's routine had been disrupted, not because feeding times had changed, but because something about her had changed, and her cat had registered it before she had fully registered it herself. The monitoring had shifted. It became more frequent, more sustained, quieter in a different way. Every glance from across the hallway was his version of what she was, too numb during that period to ask for from anyone else. Just someone to notice, just someone to stay nearby without needing her to explain why. She spent 7 years thinking he was the aloof one. She did not realize, until she sat with that understanding, that he had never been aloof at all. He had been watching over her in the only language available to him. And she had spent 7 years calling that language nothing. To your cat, every single check, every quiet glance, every deliberate pause before they look away is the most socially complex behavior their biology allows them to perform. They are choosing sustained attention to another creature over the environmental vigilance that their instincts were built for and survival once demanded. They are saying, in the only way they can, in the only vocabulary their species has developed for this feeling, you matter more than my instinct to look away. So the next time your cat walks into the room, finds you with their eyes, and quietly goes back to what they were doing, know that you just witnessed something that evolution was not supposed to make possible. A small predator, descended from solitary hunters, doing the one thing their biology argued against looking at you, because somewhere in the long history between cats and humans, you became worth the risk. That is not a glance. That is the whole thing.